Okay, guys, in Grimerica tonight, we've got Garnet Schulhauser. We're going to be talking about his new book and all sorts of fun things along the way. How's it going, buddy?
Hey man, I'm doing good.
Welcome
Yeah,
back to the Igloo.
thanks. Yeah, it's good to be here. And we've got Garnet here, who's from Vancouver Island. I think we've had more guests from Vancouver Island than any other place, which is kind of interesting on its own.
Not California.
That's true, but as per capita, it's probably more per capita. Anyways, Garnet used to be a lawyer in Calgary, and he had this experience with, I guess, what he would call probably a wise spirit in disguise, actually. And he wrote a book after that experience called "Dancing on a Stamp." And he's spoken at the Ozark conference, and he's got a new book out called "Dancing Forever with Spirit," and that's kind of about his recent adventures on a series of out-of-body experiences, and that's stuff we love talking about here in Grimerica. So we're happy to have you here, Garnet. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I guess there's lots to talk about here. I guess I want to start by just giving the listeners a quick summary of your dancing on a stamp there, your experience, and I'd love to then just get into more details about your new book.
Great. Well, it happened. I was practicing law in Calgary at the time, and I had an office on the 47th floor of Bankers Hall East Tower. You guys will know where that is. And so one sunny afternoon, I decided to go for a stroll on the Stephen Avenue Mall to get some fresh air.
Yeah.
And I walked a block or so, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this homeless man jumps out in front of me. And instead of my typical maneuver of doing a quick sidestep and going around them, because these people are often on the malls, I just stood there and took it all in, because this guy was very different. He had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes that were penetrating deep within me. I felt like he knew everything about me, even though we'd never met.
Huh.
And his eyes were also sending me this warm gush of, I describe it as pure unconditional love that was just filling my body with an amazing sense of peace and security. So it was an amazing feeling. I knew this guy was different, and it was like a deer caught in the headlights. I just sort of stood there like I was in a time warp. Had no idea how long I stood there, but I was just soaking it all in and enjoying every moment of it. And then he broke the spell and he said to me, "Why are you here?" And he quickly disappeared into a nearby store. Well, when I finally collected my wits, I decided I should go in there and find this guy. I needed to find out, like, who was he? Why did he stop me? Why did he ask me that question?
Uh-huh.
So I went into the store. There was only one entrance into the store, and I could see throughout the whole store. He wasn't there anywhere, and he hadn't come out. So I went back onto the street, and I walked up and down the Stephen Avenue Mall for 15 or 20 minutes trying to find him. He was nowhere to be seen.
Huh.
So I decided to go back to my office, and as I'm going back, my head is spinning, and I'm thinking, this guy was really quite different, and I really have to find out who he is. And so that night I resolved I was going to go back the next day at the very same time and try to find him. So I did, very same time. Next afternoon, back on the Stephen Avenue Mall, walking up and down. I was about to give up hope after about a half an hour, and finally I spotted him sitting all by himself on a bench. So I walked up to him and I said, "Who are you, and why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to help you on your journey and answer all of your questions." And then my skeptical lawyer brain kicked in. And I said, "Well, I don't see how you can help me, because it doesn't look like you can help yourself. It looks like you've been living on the street for, a couple of weeks or maybe more, and you smell like a dead fish." And he just gave me a big smile and he said, "Looks can be deceiving," because he said, "You look like you're a very successful lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade." He said, "You could turn around, go back to your office, and see if you can find your answers in all those emails waiting for you on your computer. Or you can sit down and have a chat with me." So luckily my intuition said, I've really got to sit down and talk to this guy. I mean, the worst that can happen is I lose a half an hour.
Huh.
So I sat down, and that began our conversation. And I quickly found out that this guy really was very special. He told me he was actually one of my spirit guides in disguise. And he had appeared before me to answer all the sort of life eternal questions I've been asking myself for many years. Questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my life purpose? And what happens to me when I die? And so this guy, through a series of conversations over the next several months, he answered all those questions and many others. And he asked me to write a book about our conversation, about our dialogue, so that everyone else could have access to his revelations. And that resulted in my book, Dancing on a Stamp. So that was the very first encounter I had with him.
So I heard a little bit of one of your presentations at Ozark because your book, I don't think your books got here in time. I don't think we got them yet. So I wanted to, check out a little bit about what you had to say. And it was interesting. And I seem to remember something about you. Were you going through anything at that period of your life? Like, would you say you're in a sort of seeking mode or anything like that? Or
just to back up a bit, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I was born and raised in Saskatchewan, raised in a very strict Roman Catholic family, and we went to church, almost every day it seemed. And I was an altar boy and did all that sort of stuff. But when I hit my 20s and then to my 30s, I started having a lot of questions about what the church had taught me, and I could see a lot of holes in their dogma and their beliefs. And so by the time I was in my 40s, I probably had rejected most of it. And so then I was casting about looking for another paradigm to latch onto, something else that made sense to me so that I could find the answers to my questions in a way that was different from what the Catholic Church had told me. And so I was searching, and I used to typically I would wake up on a Monday morning, and I hated Mondays. Wake up on a Monday morning, and I would be in front of my mirror shaving, and all these questions would pop into my mind as I'm looking at my mug in the mirror. And I really wanted to find the answers. And all of a sudden, then one day, and this was 2007, this homeless man came out of nowhere and was there to answer my questions. And I'm very happy he did, because they really felt true to me. And I know that what he said was really the reality of our earth and afterlife and everything else that he disclosed to me.
This is like a theme. Hey, Darren, do you remember this is, I think, our third guest who's had somewhat of a synchronous moment with a so-called like homeless guy. Hey, do you remember? There's a couple other ones. I think the shamanic guy that we had on, Don had, there's a couple people that have had profound experiences with
Don Oscar.
Like life-changing kind of moments happening with somebody who they, basically like a street person. So it's interesting how it's almost like they come in that guise so that I don't know, like hidden in plain sight kind of thing.
Yeah definitely. I wonder, well, I guess like even in ancient cultures, a shaman was probably wasn't someone of high society, if there was a high society.
So what
Maybe
happened?
it's something about perception. It's a test in yourself.
You think so?
Yeah.
Like if you're in the right frame of mind to see it or something like
Yeah.
that?
So you got to get your ego out of the way.
So Garnet, how did you find out later on that he wasn't just a homeless guy?
Well, he told me about, it was actually partway into the first conversation that he said to me, I'm really one of your spirit guides, and that we've known each other for a long time because he and I had lived several lives on Earth together before. And of course, I didn't remember any of this. And he said that he came because he wanted me to take his message to everyone in the world by writing my books. And he only showed up as the homeless man the first 3 times. After that, he was just a voice in my head, and we communicated by telepathy.
Okay.
So he, and I said to him, so why did you show up as the homeless man? He said, well, I wanted to get your attention in a sort of a gentle way to ease you into the conversation. Because if I had just started talking to you as a voice in your head, you probably would have thought you were losing your mind. And so this way, once you met me in the physical flesh, when I communicated with you as a voice in your head, then of course you could relate the two, and you already knew who I was, so it was no big deal. So, and that made sense. I understood why he did that.
Yeah. So when you started hearing the voice in your head, was it a familiar voice? Like, was it something that you would have tied to maybe later as being something recognizable from earlier on that maybe you weren't catching before, or was it a brand new?
No, actually, no. His voice was clearly distinct. I'd never heard it before, so I couldn't relate it to anything.
Huh.
It clearly first came when he approached me as the homeless man, and then his voice, of course, in my head was the same tone and same mannerisms and everything. So I knew it was him. So
okay, right.
This is the first time I'd ever encountered him.
You know what it reminds me of? I don't know if people have said this before. And I mean, we'll talk about some of the principles that you learn from him, but it really reminds me of, I read those books by Neil Donald Walsh, or some of them called Conversations with God. And it reminds me of that because it's a very sort of non-dogmatic message of, you know, love or life, like God equals love or God equals life or the source, not so much a deity in the clouds, you know?
Well, that's exactly, and I read those books too, and a lot of what, and I thought they made a lot of sense to me, and then a lot of what Albert told me really was the same, and I think that whoever Neil Walsh was channeling, whatever spirit, he was on the same page as Albert, because a lot of the stuff is similar, not identical, but a lot of it is really confirmational of what other people have said, other people have written, and he's. You know, I mean, the main things, you know, and it was interesting because I think Neil Walsh was raised as a Roman Catholic as well. And I had a funny a radio show the other day where I told them that I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and the host said, "Oh, so you're a recovering Roman Catholic as well as I am." You know, it's like, you know, I don't know if you guys had your upbringing, but when you're raised as a Roman Catholic, you tend to get a lot of dogma and stuff pounded into your head, and you're supposed to just swallow it without asking any questions. And then, of course, when you get older and you start to question things, you realize that a lot of it just doesn't hang together. And Albert basically confirmed that. I mean, he said, you know, look at, you know, the source or God did not put you here in this life. You chose to come here. You chose to incarnate here, so that you'd experience things and learn lessons that you needed for your evolution. And it was your decision to come here. And before you came here, you prepared a life plan which outlined the major circumstances of your life, so that you chose the place you're going to be born, the parents you're going to be born to, your siblings, your other relatives, your friends, your co-workers, and that sort of thing. And you did that with a very specific purpose in mind. And even though you don't remember that you had one or what was in it, we all have one. So we came here of our own volition. God didn't put us here. Then the other big thing, which really flies in the face of the teachings of the Catholic Church, is that he said that the God or the source does not control or manipulate the events in our lives, and the source does not make rules for us to follow, which is really a big one, because the Catholic Church, of course, said here's a gazillion rules that God gave to us, and you have to follow them, or you'll go to hell. And Albert just says, no, that's all nonsense, an invention of the holy men of the church. He says the source doesn't make rules for you to follow. The source is happy to have you experience whatever you can experience on earth, and nothing you can do is wrong in accordance with the source. And the follow-up to that, of course, is that when you die, you aren't judged by the source and sent to hell if you're bad, or sent to heaven if you've been a good guy. So there is no judgment by the source or anyone else other than yourself when you look back on your life to see what you've done and look at the mistakes you made, and as you try to figure out what you could have done better. So those are just huge things, because when I was raised as a Catholic, of course, they said God was like this big old man sitting up there in a gold throne in the sky, dispensing favors and sending, you know, bad tragedies and bad things to people on earth, depending on how he felt about you. And then when you died, he would sort of, you know, tally up everything you've done. And as I said, if you're bad, he'd send you to this awful place called hell, you know, and that just totally untrue. So the corollary to all that is that even the bad guys go back to the spirit side, or they go or to heaven, if you will. So, which is hard for a lot of people to swallow, because most of us think that if somebody kills somebody, well, they should suffer, they should be punished for it, not just in this world, but in the next. But that just doesn't happen. Right. Which is really hard for a lot of people to swallow, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So, and he also says
it's almost less personalized then, right? It's more of you know, it's just kind of pre-programmed. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it can be more like, I don't know.
Well, Albert says you still have free will, right? And
yeah,
you can
exactly.
make decisions
Your life isn't totally pre-programmed. You set out sort of the major milestones in your life plan, but when you're here, you don't remember your life plan, and you have free will to act and make decisions. So you will often go off course. I mean, your free will might take you, on the left fork of the road, and your life plan says you should have taken the right fork.
Right.
But it's no big deal because you can always find a way eventually to get back. And you do have coaches, and this is where your spirit guides come in, because your spirit guides are like your coaches on the spirit side. And every one of us has 2 or 3 or 4 or more, and they're there to basically coach you by sending you very subtle messages. When you come to a fork in the road, they will send you messages about which way you should go, what decision should you take, and these are very subtle, though. They're like intuitive flashes, a whisper in your mind, a gut feeling, some coincidental event that happens externally. There's various ways they can give you messages. The problem that we all have is that we don't always recognize these signs, and we're just too busy, and our minds are too cluttered, and we don't hear them. So we sort of flounder away along until we learn to sort of listen to what they're telling us, so we can get back on course. But the end result is, no matter how far off course you go, you still end up at the spirit side when you die. There's no other place to go. So it's like, as he put it to me, life on Earth is like actors acting in a play. And you have a script, and so if you're someone who's an actor who's called upon in the script to stab and kill another actor, well, you do so in the play. But when the curtain goes down and you leave the theater, you aren't arrested by the police for murder, because it was just play acting. It didn't really happen. And so when your life on Earth is over, even if you were a murder victim, when you get back to the spirit side, you don't feel any hate or animosity for the person who killed you on Earth, because you're all just acting out a script. So that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, but that's sort of how you have to look at it. And so, on the spirit side, everybody loves everybody else unconditionally, and there's no hangover of animosity or hatred or anger or anything else for what may have happened on our planet, because it's just sort of it's very much like a play.
So did you guys talk about how to connect with this source, like how to get back on your path if you're off it, or how to tell that you are on your path? Like, is it the cliche kind of stuff like meditation and all this kind of stuff to connect, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is the best way. I mean, it is a bit of a cliche, but I mean, that's clearly the best way to hear your guides, is to quiet down your mind, because we all have like 50,000 or more thoughts passing through our minds every day. And it's easy to miss 1 or 2 from important ones from your spirit guide. So we have to quiet our minds and try to, meditate is one of the best ways, and try to listen to your messages. And I mean, there's no magic to it. It's not easily done. It's hard to acquire the skill at meditation, but even a little bit of it can help. And then you begin to learn your messages. And so when you get a thought in your mind, a flash of intuition, you will start to learn that maybe I should pay attention to that rather than just dismiss it.
What about?
And as you get better at it, then you start hearing more and more of your messages, which are trying to coax you to make the right decision, get back on track.
It seems like psychedelics must work too, right? Because you always hear of so many like aha moments under the influence of psilocybin or LSD or DMT. People do these substances and they're never the same.
Well, do you remember that study about the psilocybin where they had a guy under fMRI and they expected to see his brain light up with activity when he was on mushrooms, and instead it was quiet, like it quieted right down. So maybe that's an extreme way to quiet the mind there. And even though you might not think of it because you're somewhat of a hallucinatory stage, but maybe like really your mind is quiet from all the outside chatter that happens every day, and then you can open up to source.
And the shower too. I come up with a lot of my aha moments in the shower.
Well, that's a good way to, whatever works for you, Anyway, in terms of the drug thing, Albert did not comment on that. I didn't ask him, so I can't make any comment on that. But meditating is one of the key ways. I mean, when you're in the shower and your aha moments come, you're effectively having a meditation in the shower. I mean, some people do it when they're walking through the forest. Some do it when they're sitting, quietly in a dark room. It comes in various forms. But the real trick is to learn that when you get the aha moment, to pay attention to it and try to figure out what it's telling you.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
Huh. So was it a surprise to you that a lot of the spiritual principles that you learned from Albert are sort of the same. Like you'd hear them in the spiritual community, or it's stuff that's been bandied about before. And like I know the skeptics would probably say, "Oh, Garnet's read these books or he's heard all this stuff before, so it's like your consciousness, your subconscious coming through or something like that." But for me, in a way, it could also be looked at the other way, and it could solidify some of the information that you're getting, because it's in line with a lot of the non-dogmatic, just sort of love and light. And I hate to use the words because it's kind of, that's been hijacked too, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. And, I had come across some of the ideas that Albert gave me, but, bits and pieces here and there from other people, but nobody else had ever sort of brought the whole thing together into one sort of clear picture like Albert did. Mm-hmm. And he also disclosed other things that I had never, ever heard of before, but it all seemed to fit together because once I sort of, he gave me the basics of his revelations, everything else sort of seemed to fit into place, and right. It all sort of flowed, and it just sort of made sense to me. So, I wasn't living in a vacuum for sure. I did hear other spiritual people read other spiritual books, but nobody sort of hit the total nail on the head like the way Albert did.
Right. Is there a couple of those examples you have for us that would be those outstanding ones that kind of went, wow, like this is something new, and it makes a lot of sense to me?
Well, I think Neil Welch's books, Conversation with Gods, and I read those in the mid '90s, and I thought they were kind of amazing books. And he had a lot of things right, a lot of things I think he didn't have right, based upon my conversation with Albert, but a lot of things rang true. So that was one of the big ones. I mean, that was probably the biggest one in my life anyway, until Albert came along.
And then what were some of the things that Albert said that were like a little more outstanding? You know what I mean? Compared to what you had already heard.
Well, he basically said that some of the people have said that we're here to not to learn anything, but to remember what we already know. And right. that just didn't make any sense. And after listening to Albert, he said, well, and I asked him about that, and he said, well, if you came here just to remember what you already knew on the spirit side, what's the point of coming here? You could have stayed on the spirit side, and you'd remember it without having any lapse of memory. So Albert was very clear. He said, we come here to have experiences and to learn things that aren't available to us on the spirit side. Because
human experience.
Yeah, on the spirit side, you can learn about life on Earth. I mean, you can observe what's going on. You can watch videos and do all kinds of studies about life on Earth. A week. But it's book learning, and you can't really appreciate fully life on Earth as a human until you actually incarnate into a human body. Because on the spirit side, there's no fear, there's no anger, hate, greed, no violence, none of those negative emotions, and you can sort of watch what happens when somebody who's angry and hateful hurts somebody else on Earth, but you don't really know exactly what's going on in their mind, either for the perpetrator or the victim. So you incarnate on Earth, and there it is, bango, firsthand. Now I know what it's like to be anger, what it's like to be the subject of hatred. I know what it's like to feel jealousy and greed. And that's just part of our learning experience. That adds to our wisdom as souls, and we need to get that firsthand, sort of in the trenches on Earth in a physical body. So it was sort of a major difference. We didn't come here to remember what we already knew. We came here to add to our knowledge.
And that would be over multiple lifetimes?
Yes, exactly. And we don't remember any of our other lifetimes. When you get back to the spirit side, of course you do. And then you as a soul are the sum total of all your lives and all your memories and all your experiences over all your lives. And every life you have here adds to it. And it just helps with your evolution, helps your advancement as a soul. And that's what we all want to do as souls. We want to acquire more knowledge, more wisdom, and by doing so we evolve. And so the Earth is like a tough school, and according to Albert, it's one of the toughest schools in the universe. It's really hard, and one of the main reasons is because we don't remember where we came from, or that we planned our lives, and so we have to sort of struggle along, trying to figure out, what is the meaning of life, and why am I here, and what am I doing, kind of thing. And that's one of the big challenges. Couple that with the fact that we have free will, so we can, go way off course if we're not paying attention to our messages. So So I think that was one of the big differences. One of the huge ones is that, yeah, there is a purpose for us to come here, and it's to learn and experience. The other difference compared to some of the other spiritual thinkers is that it has to do with karma, because a lot of them think that when you come here and if you accumulate negative karma, you are forced to continue to reincarnate, keep coming back and back and back on the wheel of karma until you get rid of your negative karma. And Albert said, no one forces you to come back. If you leave a life where you've built up a huge karmic debt, you can choose to not come back if you want to. But he said, most of us feel sort of a moral obligation, like, oh, I kind of messed up in that life and I had accumulated a lot of negative karma. So I think I should go back and try to make amends and balance out my karma. So it's more of a moral imperative for souls as opposed to a strict law of the universe that we have to. Okay. That's another big difference. So, Albert has said we are absolutely free every time we finish our life to decide if we want to go back and how we want to go back, or even if we want to go back into another life form on another planet, we can do that. And there's no sort of a wheel of karma that forces us to continue here life after life after life until we've gotten rid of our negative karma. Okay. Even though a lot of us will choose to do that voluntarily, but it's our decision.
Yeah, and you're getting that other side of the experience, really, right? If you come back to try and balance that out. So, Darren, did you want to say something? Because I've got.
Is there a limit
to the lives?
To lives, yeah. Because I've heard a number elsewhere. I want to see. That correlates.
Albert said you can come back as many times as you like.
Okay.
And for some souls that might be, a couple hundred times. Others it might be a couple thousand times. It depends on, you'll stop incarnating here when you feel that you have, learned everything you can learn here, and that you basically have graduated from the earth plane. And
right.
It's different for every person. There's no timetables. There's no deadlines, because we're all eternal souls. So we live forever, and there's no deadline for our evolution or any milestones we have to reach. It's just sort of at our own pace. We tend, though, to travel in groups, soul groups. And just like, any group of friends you might have on Earth, a group of souls, they try to sort of keep pace with each other, sort of a friendly competition. And so you tend to sort of travel with your soul group, but that's just voluntarily again. Nobody makes you do that, and there's no limit to how many lives you can have.
So some people remember their past lives. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you think there's like other shit going on than Earth? Like, can you like come here for a few lives and be like, yeah, let's go back over there? Or
sorry, I don't quite understand.
Like, can we choose to live a life on some place other than this existence? Like
another
where we all are
right
now. Yeah, like another material
planet?
Existence that isn't, say, Earth as we know it.
Oh, absolutely. There's like millions and millions of different life forms just in our galaxy. And of course, I saw something the other night that said there's like 100 billion galaxies in the universe observable. So there's all kinds of different life forms. Yes, you can go there. In fact, you may have already been there before you came to Earth. You'll find that out when you get back to the spirit side. And not only can you go to different planets, you can also incarnate into other life forms on Earth. You can incarnate into animals.
But it's always your choice. So it's not like, some people say if you have bad karma, you come back as a skunk.
Yeah.
Or a Canuck.
What's wrong with a skunk? No, sorry. It's always your choice. And there's nothing like, I think some of the Eastern religions, as you know, that's their philosophy, is that if you've had a bad life, you'll come back as a snake or a cockroach or something. That doesn't happen. You'll only come back to something that you choose to. And the fact of the matter is that when you, as Albert said, most souls, when they first incarnate on Earth, a lot of them will try out, a short life as an animal just to get their feet wet, because animals' lives are much more simpler than ours. And then when you sort of feel more comfortable with the Earth environment, then you'll jump into a human, which is a lot more complex of a life. But that doesn't happen to everyone. Some advanced souls just come here and say, hey, I'm going to jump right into this human body and let's see what happens, So it's different for every soul.
Wow.
That's funny because, sometimes I look at my dog or my cat and I'm like, fuck, isn't that the life? Maybe it's because I've been there before. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I remember those days. Just chill out all day.
Just being in the moment all day long, not worrying about the past or the future.
Well, that's right. I mean, I agree with you. It does seem like they have a very good life. If they have a good master, it's a very cushy life. I have a little dog, and she has a great life.
It's contentment that they seem to like. My cat just seems to ooze contentment. If I'm around paying attention to her, he's content. But if I'm not, then he's obviously very needy. But that's a different story. So Garnet, some people do remember their past lives though, and I've done some past life regression, and I think I've got memories. I mean, it's not super clear like some people would describe, but I definitely had a sense, and some dates came to me, and some friends. Old friends and some injuries and stuff like this. But so why do you think some people remember past lives more, and do you think that you can learn to remember past lives more?
I don't think you can learn to, but I think, and I'm not quite sure why some people do more so than others, but Albert tells me it does happen. Like these memories of past lives will leak through. You never get sort of the total picture. You usually get little bits and pieces here and there. Yeah. You know the old sense of deja vu. Well, you probably were there before, and you probably heard that before. And a lot of other things. Sometimes talent will sort of leak through. I mean, like child prodigies like Mozart.
Oh, right.
Did his first composition at age of 5. Well, some of his previous experience in a previous life was leaking through, and that's why he was so fabulous at such a young age. And you see that a lot.
And basically any prodigy, I guess, mathematicians or
exactly. Yeah, they've had a previous life in that field, and some of those memories are leaking through, and that's why they're just so fabulous at such a young age. So or even, it happens all the time.
Even people that have they seem like they're so fucking far ahead of where regular humans are. People invent things that are like out of this world. I wonder if that isn't something seeping through from someplace else,
or even other planets, or like past lives. Like that could be how we evolved technically too.
Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt that guys like Edison got some inspiration from the spirit
Tesla.
realm or somewhere else before he invented some of his major inventions. I think no doubt about it. Yeah.
Wow. So was this hard for you to come out and write this then? I mean, being a lawyer and sort of doing the 9 to 5 or probably 9 to 9 thing, being a lawyer, but being that.
Yeah, it was because I was very much I was a corporate lawyer at Bennett Jones. I don't know if you know the firm. It was, I think, the biggest law firm in Calgary, probably still is. And I was very much of a straight-laced, stuffed shirt corporate lawyer, wearing navy blue pinstripe suits. And I never spoke about religion or spirituality or anything else. I mean, so it was, and I knew that my former partners and law colleagues would be very surprised when I came out of the spiritual closet and wrote my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. And I knew they'd be very surprised. And I knew that some people would think I was crazy.
Yeah.
Had gone off my rocker. But and that did happen. Some people did think that.
Yeah.
But amazingly, a lot of others said, well, good for you that you had the courage to go ahead and write this book. And, I wish you good luck. So it was a bit of a mixed reaction, but actually the positive reactions outweighed the negative by, like 9 to 1. So I'm quite happy about that.
It must have been a fairly profound experience and for you to get out of that comfort zone and come out of the closet like that. I love these stories of people like these transition stories or transformational stories. There's something good about them. And the sort of waking up stories, it seems like that's kind of a theme here too, eh, Darren? People that have sort of something's happened and they've kind of transformed.
Yeah. Just like that.
Yeah.
Even you.
Yeah, even me.
Maybe me too.
Yeah. So let's talk about your newest book before we run out of time here. It's flying by. You're talking about OBEs and out-of-body experiences, sort of him leading you through those?
Yeah, I'll tell you how that came about.
Yeah.
I had, for my first book, it was basically a question and answer session, a dialogue between Albert and myself. And then he left me for a while, basically so I could write the manuscript for my first book. And he hadn't been around for a while, and I was getting a little yancy because he told me I had to write 2, 3, and 4 books in total, and I wanted to get going at the second book. But I needed him around because he's my inspiration, and he gives me the knowledge. And so one night I heard a noise in my bed, and I sat up in bed, and I could see this sort of ghost-like ethereal figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. And when it moved closer to the foot of my bed, I recognized it. It was my old friend Albert as the homeless man, except he was in astral form. And I said, well, hi, Albert. Nice to see you again. What's up? and he said, I'm going to take you on a series of astral adventures because I believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So rather than me describe and dictate what I want you to know, I'm going to take you to show you things and to meet people. And I said, well, okay, Albert, but how long are we going to be gone? Do I have to tell my wife I'm going? And who's going to take out my garbage in the morning? And he just laughed and said, we're going in astral form. You'll leave your physical body behind, and you'll be back by the morning. Nobody will know you're gone.
Yeah.
So he reached out, grabbed my hand, basically pulled my astral body out of my physical body. I turned around and looked, and there my body was still sound asleep in bed beside my wife and my little dog. And he said, come on with me. And he just led me up, and we rose up through the ceiling. When you're in astral form, you can pass through walls and ceilings and all kinds of stuff. We passed up to the ceiling and up through the clouds, and we stopped for a moment, hovering above our planet. And I turned around and looked, and it was like a beautiful pendant hanging in a sea of black ink. It was just amazing. I can understand now what the astronauts get to see when they're orbiting in the International Space Station or coming back from the moon. Anyway, it's quite amazing. So then he let me look at it briefly, and then he took me through this sort of it looked like a doorway, but the door frame was sort of shimmering. And he said, we're going to the spirit side. So we sort of walked through this doorway. It was all black until I got to the other side. Then I was standing in this beautiful meadow, the most beautiful meadow I've ever seen. It had lush green grass, beautiful, tall, majestic trees, and a whole field of wildflowers that were like in 1,000 different colors you never see on Earth, with amazing, perfume wafting up. And so he led me through this meadow, sort of up a gentle hill. And at the top of the hill, I could see a group of people at the bottom of the hill. As we approached the people at the bottom of the hill, I recognized them. And they were my mother, my father, my brother, my grandparents, some of the aunts and uncles who passed on. They were all there to welcome me. And we had a nice welcoming party. I was a bit concerned initially at meeting my mother because she was the staunch Roman Catholic. And I was afraid that she wouldn't like what I said in my book, Dancing on a Stamp, because I wasn't kind to the church there. But she allayed my fears and said, no problem. I would have been unhappy with you had I still been on Earth. But now that I'm here, I see the whole picture, and you've done a good job. So that's great. And the other interesting thing was running around from behind this crowd was my little dog, Oscar, who was our miniature schnauzer who died about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he was there, and he came running up to me, his tail was wagging furiously. And I knelt down, and he licked my face. And that sort of really rounded out the whole welcoming party, because other people have said that when they've had near-death experiences, that they do meet, in addition to their human relatives, their dogs, cats, and so on.
Yeah.
And that rang true to me because there was my little Oscar. So it was a very nice welcoming party. We didn't linger there very long. Albert said, come on, we've got business to do. So he took me through the meadow to this beautiful white city that he called Aglaia. And it was one of the cities on the spirit side. And we took a stroll down the main street. And there was an amazing sight, because there was just a whole group of people strolling down the street who were in all different shades of skin, wearing all kinds of different colored garments from very different eras, in Earth's history. And I said to Albert, like, what's going on here? Because it felt like I was at a costume ball. And he said, well, souls on the spirit side can choose to appear to others in any way that they want to. And they will often choose to appear as somebody that a person that they had lived in a past life on Earth. So maybe they felt like they were, a Roman senator, and they liked that life. They may appear as such, on the spirit side. And he said they can change their appearance anytime they choose. And some people will choose just to be like a ball of glowing light on the spirit side. So it was very interesting. It was like literally like a costume ball. But from there, he took me. We strolled down the street, took me to this beautiful white building called the Hall of Wisdom, and we went in there. And inside this big room was seated around a semicircle table were 11 people dressed in robes with white hair. And Albert said that they were called the Council of Wise Ones, and they were wise, very advanced souls whose job it was to oversee all the incarnations on Earth. And so he said, I brought you here because they wanted to see you.
Wow.
And so I, I said, hi. And the chair of the group said, her name was Sophia. She said, we asked Albert to bring you here because we have a message for you to give to your fellow humans. And I can tell you what the message is if you like, guys.
Yeah, I want to go back for a sec though on something.
Yeah.
Were you ever worried you were dead?
No, I wasn't. When I first left my physical body, I had a little bit of apprehension about, will I ever be able to get back there? But that fear was soon allayed because Albert just said, yeah, there's no problem. We're just going to be gone for a short while in Earth terms, but I'll bring you back and you'll go back in your body. And so I was very relaxed after that. And when I got back to my body the first time, then I knew how it worked. And so I was very happy thereafter. I had no concerns. And I wasn't worried that I was dead. I felt very much alive, actually.
Yeah. This is quite the opposite, probably. So I've got a question about your welcoming party. Were they all deceased from before?
Yes, they were all deceased from human life. But as I say, I knew them all. Well, some of them I didn't. Some of my grandparents who had died before I was born, I didn't recognize what they introduced themselves. But of course, I knew my mother and dad and my brother and some of my aunts and uncles. And Albert says that this is the kind of welcoming party we all get when we die here and cross over to the spirit side. And it depends on who we are as to who's in the welcoming party. But it's just there to make you feel comfortable, make you feel like you've come home. It was a very great experience. I mean, it was like a unconditional love all around, and big hugs from everyone, and it just made me feel great. It also confirmed to me, without a doubt, that people live on after they die on Earth, and that there is no death as such, just a changing of a transition from a physical body on Earth over to your natural form, which is an astral body, on the spirit side. So it was wonderful.
What's your feeling if somebody was lucid dreaming at the time and they're dreaming about you and your family? Would you be able to see them there? Like, do you think that there's the crossover, if you're deep enough into a lucid dream, that you could actually those dimensions would sort of bleed together, or are they similar?
Well, I think that I don't know too much about lucid dreaming, but I think that when someone is lucid dreaming, they're actually astral traveling, and in fact, everyone astral travels. This is one of the other amazing things, is that Albert said that every human, when they go to sleep, their soul, their spirit leaves their physical body and either goes somewhere else on Earth or goes to the spirit side, except that we don't generally remember it. And I was allowed to remember my trips for the reasons that I could write a book about it. And somebody who's lucid dreaming, I think they're astral traveling. And the thing is, they remember some aspects of it when they wake up.
Yeah.
So I think they go to the same place. They go in the astral plane and they see different things. And I don't know if I would be able to run into anyone who's doing it when I was over there, but possibly I could have.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I kind of agree with you too. I think that when you're in those, I think there's different stages of dreams. Some of them, the real deep, profound ones, could be what you're talking about, and then there's like sometimes lighter ones that really don't have as much meaning or as much depth.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's right. And I think not all dreams are a result of astral traveling. I think there's different kinds of dreams, a lot of people have asked me if after I tell my story about my astral travels, they can say, well, how do you know you didn't just dream all this? And I said, well, because I've had lots of dreams in my life, and even the most vivid dreams disappear quickly within like 2 or 3 hours after I wake up.
Yeah.
But my memories of my astral travels were very lucid, very vivid for quite a long time after. And in fact, I still remember a lot of it. Some of the details have slipped, but I still remember a lot of it. And that was designed so that I could have time to get to my computer and quickly type out my memories of all my trips so I could do my book.
Yeah, it's too bad people don't trust our discernment, not ours, but our culture's discernment between things like, whether they were dreaming or having out-of-body experiences. So many people just want to poo-poo the whole thing and look for some mundane explanation.
Yeah, and of course, you've all read about, there's been, oodles of people who've had near-death experiences, humans, and they tell the story of going to the spirit side or heaven or wherever it was they went. And that's all very true. They actually did do that. But, there are a lot of skeptics who say, oh, well, I don't believe that, and you just dreamed that, or you're hallucinating or whatever. But you know what? There's always going to be skeptics, and I don't really care if, people can choose to believe me or not believe me.
Yeah.
I know what I experienced, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to report about it.
So let's report about that message then. I hope it's not about the domination of Google, is it, or about global warming or anything like that?
Google.
That's funny. No, it was actually quite a serious message. The message, I mean, it went on for a while, but to give you the thumbnail sketch, they basically said, look, you got to tell your fellow humans, your civilization is at a very advanced stage. You've developed some amazing technology, but your emotional intelligence has not followed suit, so that most of you don't have control of your negative emotions. There's too much anger, hate, and fear, and so on, which causes conflicts and killing and injuring people. And that has got to stop, because they said we're at a stage where previous civilizations on Earth were before that ended up destroying themselves, like Atlantis and Lemuria, and there was a few others. And they said, you guys have to be careful because you have enough weapons that you could basically destroy all life on your planet if you let loose with them. So you've got to get yourselves under control, and you've got to discard your negative emotions, embrace love and compassion, so that you can raise your vibrations and get out of the potential mess that you're in. Because if you don't, it could go very badly for you. And they said, we're all right behind you guys. We want you to get over this one. We've watched in frustration as some of your other civilizations crashed and burned, and we don't want that to happen this time. We're getting tired of watching humans rise up to a very high level and then just destroy themselves. So we want you to get over this. And so we want to send a lot of help, and we're sending a lot of messages. We're channeling our message through a lot of people on your planet. We're getting advanced souls to volunteer to incarnate as humans to sort of spread the word and set a good example. And we really want you to make this work. And so they wanted me to take that back to tell people that that we have a lot of help from the spirit side, from our ET friends, and we really have to sort of focus on where we are and how we can sort of move forward on the ladder of spiritual enlightenment. And the ultimate goal is to raise our vibrations so that we can ascend up to Earth in a higher dimension, which a lot of people call the new Earth. And we can only do that if we can discard our negative emotions. And some of us have already moved up there, and some of us are trying hard, and unfortunately, too many of us aren't even aware of what they should be doing. So those of us who know have to spread the word.
Right. Was there any concern about the planet itself, or just humanity? Or was it all together?
Well, they're concerned about what we're doing, the damage we're doing to our planet, the pollution and everything else. I mean, that's a concern. And they said, whether you know it or not, Mother Earth doesn't like what you're doing, and Mother Earth can in fact fight back. And Mother Earth has a lot of tools in her arsenal, like natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and so on. And Mother Earth is really like a living entity, and has a consciousness. And this, our planet doesn't like what humans are doing. Before humans came along, especially since before the Industrial Revolution, there wasn't a lot of great pollution, no harm to Mother Earth. And since the Industrial Revolution, humanity has been causing a lot of damage, as you know,
right.
Cutting down rainforests and polluting the water and polluting the air, and the whole thing. Yeah. And so that sort of damage, they wanted to stop that damage. And if, hopefully Mother Earth doesn't have to take strong action against us. But, in the last few years, a lot of the natural disasters have been picking up the pace. I think if you've noticed, I mean, there's been a lot more floods and earthquakes and, volcanoes and other things. And that's just Mother Earth's way of striking back at us to say, hey, you guys got to cut this out because I don't like what you're doing to me.
Should just shake us off.
Yeah,
exactly.
Boom, a fucking asteroid. 50,000 survivors.
Humans are like an invasive weed that sort of got into somebody's garden. Without humans here, the planet Earth and all the other creatures would get along just fine. Yeah. And there wouldn't be any damage to the planet, and there'd be a nice balance, nice harmony. We're causing a lot of problems, and we need to stop that.
So what's your feeling about, we talk about this quite a bit here, there's an ancient mystery kind of theme, and it's talking about, because there's lots of evidence now with Göbekli Tepe and all these megalithic sites that are going back to like 12,000 years. And then we're talking about, is there a chance that they're pre-ice age? And then it brings Atlantis into it. So what's your feeling, or have you heard about some of those previous societies, let's say Atlantis or Lemurian, if they ever made it off-world like we did? Because it's hard to picture another civilization on Earth being technically advanced. I mean, obviously it was a different type of technology, but what's your thought about that?
Albert said a lot of these advanced civilizations did in fact exist. And he didn't mention to me whether or not they made it off Earth.
What's your
but
feeling?
He did say that they ended up destroying themselves because they couldn't control their technology, or they couldn't control their emotions. And so there was a lot of crashing and burning going on before our particular civilization. But the ETs, the extraterrestrials that have been visiting Earth since day one, they've been around watching and monitoring what's going on. They've been trying to give us help in subtle ways, like giving us sort of some ideas for new inventions and new methods of doing things, and some intuitive thoughts that help people like Edison with his inventions. But they're not allowed to sort of directly interfere, so they can't just go and use their technology to destroy all of our nuclear weapons.
Right.
They'd like to, but they're not allowed to, and they can't sort of interfere to prevent our wars. So they can't sort of stop World War I or World War II or the Korean War or the Vietnam War. They have to sort of sit back and watch and let us kill each other. And so they're very upset about where we seem to be going, and they're trying their best to try to steer us on the right course as well, given the sort of the limitations that they're living with. And the only way they can understand they can directly interfere is if we actually are going to blow up our whole planet.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Is there a line that can be crossed by us so the interference could happen? Because we talk about those nuclear base sightings. There's a whole bunch of UFO reports and that have disarmed missiles at nuclear installations. I mean, there's a shitload of cases where that's happened, and people are saying, oh, that's ET basically showing us that they have control over that, or that we shouldn't be messing around with those. So is there something that I could understand them not getting involved in sort of like a traditional war, but what if we get into nuclear weapons where it affects more than just the planet and it goes beyond?
Albert was a little vague on that, but I think that there is a line, and he didn't sort of draw it for me, but I think that if it got to be a real mess, that they would step in and stop us from destroying our planet. And so they're there, and they're always around us, always watching, and I think that hopefully we never get to the point where we have to push that button. But it might be nice to know that they may, in fact, stop it, but there may be a lot of deaths and a lot of damage going on before they actually get to that point. So we shouldn't sort of push our luck on that aspect. We should try to fix things up for ourselves and not have to call them in to have them come in to sort of prevent the ultimate disaster.
I do have a funny question. Well, it's not funny. It's actually probably the more serious type. But we've been talking about sort of like demonic possession and all that. We had an exorcist on the show, and I listened to a book recently about it, and because I'm not religious, so I have a hard time with the whole like the dogmatic God type stuff. But when I was reading these and hearing these cases of real life exorcisms, and that there is some demonic possession going on, and I know people personally that have had demonic experiences, and I believe them. What do you think that is then? I mean, what do you think about this whole good and evil and the spirit, like the evil spirits versus good spirits and that type of thing?
Well, first of all, there's no devil. Devil doesn't exist. That's an invention of the religions. So there's no devil. There's no evil spirits per se. But what sometimes happens is that some souls, when they leave an incarnation, they sort of get lost temporarily in sort of in between Earth and the spirit plane. Like and so some of those people are kind of confused, misguided, and some of them can do funny things. And it's not because they're evil, just because they don't realize really who they are, or in some cases they don't even realize that they're dead. They still think that they're alive. And hence you have all the stories about ghosts haunting a house. It's because that spirit doesn't realize that it's dead, and until it lets its guides sort of come and grab it by the hand and say, "Come on, we have to take you home, it'll kind of hang around and do funny things in a haunted house. And so sometimes I think these spirits can play those kind of games with people who are possessed, but it's not because they're evil, it's just because they are misguided and confused and they've lost their way temporarily.
Yeah,
but nobody's ever lost for sure, because you never ever stay there. Eventually you transition over to the spirit side. So it's kind of a temporary thing. Or
until they get rescued by the people at the Soul Rescue Program at the Monroe Institute on Vancouver Island. It's fascinating, but they were talking about it too, right? Like going through that, basically going out of body and rescuing those trapped souls.
Yeah.
Have you gone to that? No, have you seen Paul Elder at his institute there on the island? No,
in fact, I haven't even heard of it. No.
Wow. Yeah. Oh man, he's just up the island from you, I think. And it's the Monroe Institute, and they developed this hemisync technology to basically, so when you listen to these meditations, it brings your brainwaves down to like theta level pretty quick. And they basically have residential programs to learn how to do OBEs and stuff. So it's fascinating.
I've read about the Monroe Institute and about the hemisync program.
Yeah.
I've also read Paul Elder's book.
Yeah.
The Eyes of an Angel. Yeah. Quite interesting. Paul Elder used to be mayor of Swift Current.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't know he had a facility here on the island.
Yeah, it's fairly new, and he's actually like the only, I think, where's the other one? Virginia, I think, the non-Virginian certified sort of Monroe workshop kind of thing or facility. Yeah.
In his book, he went to the Monroe Institute several times. He describes that in his book. Yeah. So it's interesting that they've actually given him a branch office, so to speak. So,
yeah, exactly. And apparently it's doing pretty good. So
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'd like to meet the guy.
Yeah. So getting back to that question quickly. So the demonic possession thing, you probably would say it's not demonic possession?
It's not possession by an evil spirit or a devil. No, because the devil doesn't exist.
Right.
And there are no evil spirits or bad spirits per se. There may be some, lost, misguided ones, but they're not actually evil. They're just they do things that we would call evil, but they're just confused and lost, and they need some guidance. Right. They eventually do get it, but there's no devil. There's no sort of pure evil spirits in existence, according to Albert.
Okay. Huh, Darren, do you got any questions?
No, I think we should. Well, I think we're about out of time.
Can you give us a hint on your book 3 and 4?
Yeah.
Well, book 3's already written. It's already been accepted by my publisher.
And that's Ozark, right? Is it your publisher?
Yeah, Ozark. Yeah. It's founded by Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah. There's somebody here that does her past life regressions here that I want to go check out.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon is quite famous for that. Anyway, so my third book is called Dance of Heavenly Bliss. And it'll be published sometime later this year or early next year. And the fourth book, I haven't started on it. I'm waiting for Albert to tell me what to do and when.
Right on. Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll check that one out when it comes out for sure. It's funny because I've wanted to have a channel, or I don't even know. Could you call yourself a channeler?
Not in the traditional sense, because not like a trance channeler where the spirit sort of takes over the voice box in the body and does that sort of thing. So I'm not a traditional channeler, but the fact that I communicate with Albert means I am channeling spirit. So in a way, I am.
Yeah, because I was wanting to have one on, and then you got in touch with us. So it's great to chat with you.
It was nice being on your show.
Do you have anything else before we wrap it up? Anything else you want to get out there, or let our listeners know where they can track you down?
Well, sure. I mean, you can track me down, and you can find in order to buy my book, go to my website, which is garnetschulhauser.com. And there's a bunch of buy links for the online stores where you can buy my books. You can read about what's in my books, and you can get to my radio recordings and my YouTube channel and so on. My email address is on my website, so if they want to send a comment or a question, I'm happy to get it. And so that's my main contact place is my website.
Great, thanks. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes, and people can just click on them from the notes. And we want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, enjoy the hockey game tonight.
You too.
Okay. Go Flames.
Okay. Take care, Garnet.